All right there, folks. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Today we're going to continue working on our slot car models. We're going to be where we left off. We had added our bearings. Now we need to go ahead and add our motors and gearboxes. So we got a couple of options here. If you are going to use a pre-constructed gearbox like one of these, this video is not for you. You're going to want to check out a different video. That if you are going to be assembling your gears directly into the chassis, like so, this is the video for you. Alright, so just before we get any further. Now, here we have a car that has already been set up, ready for the gears. We've actually kind of got ahead of ourselves with the motor here. So we're going to show where we stand. So we've added the bearings. The bearing gap on either side is about 1/4 of an inch, so about the same thickness as the straw is wide. Sticks out about the same amount on both sides, all sides. We've got the bearing glued in the front, and we've got the bearing securely glued in the back, inside and out. We're going to take our scissors and remove the middle section of the bearing. Putting my scissors right up against the cardboard. So the middle section of the bearing is going to go away, and that's going to provide us clearance for the gear to go in here. Now these gears, when they come off the printer, they are not in spectacular condition. They're probably going to need some rework. 3D printers are wonderful, but they're not perfect. So go ahead and take a piece of sandpaper and maybe a scissors or something and clean up any flash that's around the outside, and then clean each tooth. Make sure that there's not a lot of gunk and burrs in there. Take your time with that. The cleaner that is, the better it's going to roll. Also, the back of the gear is going to be all gunked up with adhesive from the bed, and it may not be perfectly smooth. So you want to make that as smooth as possible, because this is going to be rubbing against this bearing, and the smoother that is, the better it's going to roll. So take a few minutes to clean your gears up. More time than I just spent, but you don't want to watch me sand for 20 minutes. So now this is going to have to go in here. Before we do that, I'm going to actually just push this on, and it's going to be difficult to push. It's got to be hard. If it's not difficult, and if you don't have to stand up to push this down, you probably aren't doing it right. So make sure that you get that on there. You'll have to stand, like I said, you'll have to stand up. You have to lean down onto it, and you make sure that you're pushing to the center. If you push down on the edges of the gear, you're going to break that off. So make sure you're pushing right down on the center. Once you have it on one time, then we can take a pair of pliers and hold on to the axle and twist to pull it off. Just twist back and forth and pull, and it should slide off. Now that needs to be a tight fit. We don't want to do that too many times, because the more times you do it, the looser that gets. Next thing I'm going to do is come in here and push this on into the chassis. And if we loosened up the gear enough the first time, it should slide on for us. There we go. And then it should spin freely. Check to make sure everything spins freely. Make sure you don't have any glue in the bearing, that you didn't melt your bearing with your glue when you put it in place. Use any deformation there, you're going to have to take and put a new bearing in it if it's not rolling smooth. So get that rolling nice and smooth, and then get your motor and the spur gear for the motor. Now your spur gear should have a hole in one end that's a nice tight fit for the shaft on the motor, and the other end is going to be likely to be slightly smaller due to the way that this thing printed, so this thing printed down on the table like that, and the first layer got squished down. So this The very first layer on the back is probably not in great condition. You can take a knife and chamfer those tips off, or you could put it on here and roll it across some sandpaper to clean those edges up. Also, make sure that you clean between the gear teeth. Make sure that they are free of burrs, and take your time with this. Now this needs to get on here good and tight. If it's too difficult for you to get on by hand, take a pair of pliers, channel lock pliers like this, and just squeeze it. Open them up nice and wide, and then squeeze that on. And that should push on, and that should be very well set. And then you go ahead and, again, finish cleaning the teeth up. Don't rush. Take your time with that. I'm going to kind of skip ahead and assume that that's perfect, even though I know it's not right now. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and glue this motor into the gearbox. Now, when we do that, this step requires some tuning. Okay, you'll have to align the center line of your motor with the center line of the axle. So when you do that, you want to make sure that that is passing just like that. All right, so these axes should align. If they don't, your gears will not mesh correctly. So you may, depending on your chassis, you may be able to put it in flat like that, or you may have to tilt it up or down a little bit to get that angle. To get the angle, just build up some cardboard or hot glue in there to get the angle that you're looking for. Make sure that the motor contacts are up. If you glue it with the contacts down, you're not going to be able to wire your motor. So glue this in this position. Once you get the angle set and you've got your shims in place with the cardboard or hot glue, then you can go ahead and glue the motor down. To glue the motor down, you're just going to put a dab of hot glue down, and then line it up. And as the glue cools, make sure that you can rotate the motor. So if the axle is not able to rotate freely and easily while you rotate this, it's not going right. So you want to make sure to take your time and get that in, and it should be a nice smooth rotation. And that's the process. Take your time with this. Work it until it's nice and smooth. You might need to do some trimming in the opening, or shimming to get the motor just right, or cleaning up the gears with sandpaper. Just take your time. Do the best you can. The smoother it works, the more likely you are to have a good working slot car. So good luck. Have fun. As always, keep being awesome.